Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the LVLing Up Vodcast. Today I am joined by the amazing Ryan Tuckwood from SWISH Sales Coaching. Welcome to today's episode, Ryan.
Thanks, Jasmine. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here, Ryan, because look, I love all of the guests that we have on the podcast, but yours is an incredible story and a really inspirational one, and I'm really excited that we get to share that with everyone who's been, following these vodcasts for a bit of inspo themselves. So buckle in, everyone. You're in for a good story today with Ryan. But let's firstly start. I guess tell us about Swish and what you guys do. And Swish is an acronym, right?
SWISH is an acronym, yeah. So SWISH stands for Selling with Integrity and Selling Honestly. And we are an ethical sales training organization based on the beautiful Gold Coast in Australia. We were founded back in October 2014, and I'll go into the story of that in a second, I imagine. And yeah, we work with business owners, entrepreneurs, sales professionals all around the globe with the aim of helping them increase their revenue ultimately through what we call ethical sales coaching and trying to change the perception of the industry that is tarnished. That's what we do.
Yeah, I love that. I know we're going to hear about your journey, but if anyone's watching this going, what's ethical sales leadership? What is that?
Firstly, it's an oxymoron, right? Ethical, it doesn't work together, does it? Which is
Well,
why a lot of people question it. But what it was designed to do was get people to stop focusing on just making a sale and really encourage people to dig a little bit deeper and understand that the consumer of 2021 is a lot more sophisticated, a lot more educated than they ever were before. So stop being condescending and patronizing to them and just learn how to build deeper relationships. So instead of just learning how to sell, learn how to create clients for life. And that's really the fundamentals of what we've tried to create here.
I love it. I love it. We had, I think, episode 2, we had a sales leadership coach on the podcast, and we talked about how, sales doesn't have to be this icky term. I think people still have this stereotype and perception of it, and I love the work that you guys do to really flip that on its head with ethical sales. So it's great. All right. I always want to jump in. Tell us right back to the start. How did your journey into Swish begin, Ryan?
How far back do I go? So my journey, I guess, I moved here in 2010 from the UK. I always say that I was going through my quarter life crisis at the age of 27. I'd been a mechanical maintenance engineer / technician for 8 years. So I was very methodical. I was very process driven. I was an introvert as a kid, and all the way through my teenage years into my 20s, I was very much not a loner, but I liked working alone, and I was always more productive by myself. So engineering was perfect. Didn't have to talk to anybody. Get in, get the job done, go home. But I started to think that towards the back end of my 20s, I started to maybe think that maybe there's something else out there for me. I didn't know what it was, that maybe there was more potential for me. And eventually I just decided to give it all up. So I had a girlfriend of 5 years. I had a Siberian Husky. I had property. I drove an Audi TT. And I was the successful one in my family, for want of a better phrase. I was educated to an extent, and I was earning some good money. But it just felt like a bit of Groundhog Day. So I gave it all up. I decided to jump on a plane. I moved over to Australia. I lived in Sydney originally for a few months, and then it got cold down there. So I decided to fly up to Queensland. I got up to Cairns, traveled down the coast like every good backpacker should do when they're going through a quarter life crisis, and had some fun whilst I did it. And then I wound up on the Gold Coast, and I was fortunate that I met an old football colleague on the Gold Coast. The first day I got here, I was only supposed to be transiently passing through. Went for a beer with him, ended up meeting a few of his football mates, and it was all Brits, and it just felt like home from home in the sun. So I settled here on the Gold Coast. But my challenge was, as a backpacker, you can only work for one organization for 6 months, and then you have to move on. So the only work I could find, I didn't want to go back into engineering. I knew if I did, I'd never get out of it because the money would get me again. So the only work I could find was in a call center. So I found myself in a call center, making outbound cold calls 300 times a day. And I had 90 seconds to qualify people to see if they had $15,000 to $25,000 in their bank account.
I think there's
Now,
probably people
to take
listening
that
to
little
this,
introvert kid
Ryan.
out of,
I was just going to say, there's probably people listening to this like me who just cringed inside a little bit hearing about your job doing outbound sales for that kind of money.
yeah.
Like, oh, that, how did you even tackle that, as you say, like an introvert, doing that kind of work?
Badly. So, the, so I the only reason I did that was a guy that I played football with, Jack, was the sales manager at the time, and he was like, "Come on, mate, you're good with people," and I've since realized just being a nice person isn't enough in sales, right? You can't just be able to build rapport. There's more to it, way more to it than that. So he kind of induced me into this role, and I was given a script. I was given a phone, no computers. It was just literally 100 pieces of paper in the morning, and then after lunch in the afternoon to get 300 a day. And I was just getting abuse after abuse and rejection and being told in no uncertain terms to go away and never call me again. And initially, I thought it was quite humorous. And when I say initially, I mean for the first hour. And then after an hour or so, I'm like, this is the most horrendous thing I've done in my life. I don't like conflict. I don't like confrontation. So I'd never had anybody like abuse me, like a stranger just abuse me or have a go at me for no reason. I'm just doing my job, man. I'm just trying to make some money to stay in Australia. I stuck it out for 3 months, just under 3 months. And in that period, I was really bad, as in I was getting higher levels of anxiety. I didn't know it was anxiety at the time. I never got a depression, but it's probably the closest I've ever been to it. And I didn't want to pick up the phone. I didn't want to go in there in the morning. I'd get picked up for work, and as people turned up to pick me up because I couldn't afford a car or anything, I'm like, oh my God, how can I get out of this? How can I make an excuse? But I didn't. I stuck it out because Jack was a good friend of mine, and the only reason I kept the job, even though I was crap, was because I played football with Jack and he likes me. There was 21 people in that sales floor. I was 21 out of 21 for the first 3 months straight. So I was the worst person in that company from a sales perspective. And then at the same time, I talk about my crisis point a lot. My crisis point was sleeping on a bathroom floor. I was paying my friends James on the Gold Coast, a place called Broadbeach. I was paying them $50 a week to sleep on their bathroom floor on a pool floaty on a lilo. And I stayed there for 6 weeks. And then it was about, I think it was like 2:00 in the morning. It was a Tuesday morning. And I'm laying there. It's pitch black, windowless box of a bathroom. It wasn't a fitted out bathroom. It was just a room with some like pipes coming out, ready to be fitted out, which is why they said you could use it. And then all of a sudden I'm laying there and this lilo or this pool floaty just pops on me. And then I just sink to the floor and I'm laying there like, what am I doing? Like I'm not good at sales. I hate it. Like I hate it with a passion. I've got no money. At the time I had 31 cents to my name. Me and my wife, or my fiance, no, not even my fiance, my girlfriend, Alicia, as she was at the time, who's now my wife. We couldn't afford sushi between the two of us one day. And when you get to that sort of stage, you hit what might be perceived as rock bottom. You have a decision to make, and the decision is either you dig your heels in and you carry on, or you quit. And I didn't have the mindset or the strength to dig my heels in at that stage of my life, so I quit. And the next morning I went in and I spoke to Jack and I said, mate, sales isn't for me. Sales is for the extroverts. It's for the people that have got the gift of the gab. So I'm out. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just can't do this. And the next part of the conversation literally changed my whole life forever. He just looked me dead in the eyes and he said to me, I'm not going to let you quit because you haven't even tried just yet. And at that point, I actually got really angry because I'm like, I am trying. I'm working my ass off. But what he meant was, and what he said was, he says, no, you haven't fanatically obsessed and really tried to understand the art and science and craft that is sales and human behavior and NLP and emotional intelligence and stuff that I'd never even heard of. So he set me a challenge. He said, I want you for the next 60 days to fanatically consume as much information as you can around the art of sales and negotiation and communication ultimately. And if in 60 days time, you're still 21st on the sales board, I'll pay for you and Alicia to go wherever you want. She's from Auckland. So you go to New Zealand if you want to go back to the UK. But at least in that stage, go home knowing that you gave this a really good go, and go do it with your head held high. I now know that it's been proven that it takes an average of 66 days to form new habits and behaviors, which is why that 60-day threshold was there. And at that stage, I didn't throw myself into it, not from a positive perspective. I threw myself into it almost from a self-sabotaging perspective, because I didn't want this to. I'm somebody that I've been successful in lots of things that I've done, whether that be thank you, mate. There we go. Got a coffee delivered. I'll take that. Sorry, that's not good on a podcast, is it? I'm somebody that's I hadn't failed. I know it sounds really egotistical, but I'd been a half decent at sports. I'd come through engineering and I'd worked my way up to a technician at quite a young age. So this was the first time I was failing at something. So when somebody said to me, right, I'll pay for your flights if you just do this for 60 more days, I'm like, brilliant. Well, that's not going to work anyway, because I would have got this by now if I was going to get it. And then I was doing 15, 20 minutes a day. And within 5 weeks, I was number one salesperson in the company. And then the following, not following year, 2013, I did $334,000 in commissions. And I'm like, oh my God, my whole world has just changed.
Whoa. Time out. You glossed over that like that was just so easy. What happened for you? Like firstly, if it was me going, I've committed, I'm quitting. First of all, you've got someone going, I'm not letting you quit. You've got, 2 more months at this. Yeah. How did you feel? And then how did you, I guess, change your mindset and dig your heels in, like you said? And then what did you do in those 5 weeks? Because that's remarkable. How do you go from bottom of the ladder to top?
I felt like cathartic. Once I'd accepted I was leaving, the pressure was off. And in my head, I just got free flights. So I'm like, this is awesome. So and this is a big thing that we talk about within a sales or business environment is mindset, right? The mindset of the pressure that is placed upon a salesperson to perform. And it's not the salesperson's fault. Usually it comes from management not understanding the psychology of how to inspire people to work. So for me, the pressure's off, right? I've just been given 2 more months worth of employment, guaranteed, and nothing to lose. And I like learning things anyway. So I'm like, well, I'll just throw myself into this. I'll just read a little bit. I'll watch some videos. I was getting all free stuff from everywhere. He just asked, he said, all I want you to do is come in a little bit earlier, listen to other people on the phones, on your breaks. Don't just go and chat to everybody else, listen to people. And he goes, at that stage, like, I'll then pay for it as long as I know you've given this a good go. So there was like prerequisites of it, right?
Yeah.
And I started to stumble across the likes of Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Ron Willingham, Jim Rohn, Jordan Belfort. Say what you want about that guy, and most people do.
He can sell.
He can sell he just does it for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
So what there was 2 things that happened to me during that 5-week period. Firstly, I started to get some quick wins. Right, so I started to see that I could hold a conversation more. If somebody gave me an objection, I was able to keep them on the phone for a little bit longer. I didn't fear picking up the phone as much because I'd done a little bit of mindset. And I'm like, okay, so quick wins are what it's all about. Because if I can be better than I was yesterday, if I can just hold somebody on the phone for 2 minutes as opposed to 90 seconds, that's progression, not perfection. So progression was important. And then when I kind of took a backwards step and I looked at all of these trainers, I realized there is just a process. And I went, it's just like engineering. There is a system, there is an order of which you have to do things. And if I put things in the right order and I say it in the right order at the right time, in the right tone to the right person. So now we go a lot deeper into the personas as well. Then people change their responses to you. I'm like, I just have to change the words and say them differently. And
that's really cool, Ryan. I like that you changed your mindset and something clicked for you that made you go, oh, it's like engineering. Oh, yeah. It's a process. It's linear. The cogs have to move in this certain way to get the outcome you want. And that must have been, I guess, an epiphany for you.
It was the biggest epiphany because that's the first part, right? Because now I'm enjoying it a little bit more, right? And people go, I hate my job. And when people don't like their job or they're not enjoying it, it's usually because they're not good at it. Nobody enjoys doing something they're not good at it. I'm gonna repel that. And the easiest thing to do is to quit. So our sales isn't for me. It's like, have you tried? It's like, no, I don't want to be a salesperson. Okay, that's different than sales not being for you. And so then I started making more sales, started making more money, and then with this could be a can of worms, so I'll gloss through it but hopefully in an elegant way. My dad's been pretty sick since 2001. He had esophagus cancer, so he's highly disfigured. Wow. He's still with us, but he hasn't been able to work since then. So they got no money, they rent, they got no pension or superannuation. So in 2013, when I started like combining the enjoyment of speaking with other humans in its most simplistic form, and making money, I was able to support them. So not only was sales a process, but sales was impact. And I realized that I can't be the only introvert like this. I can't be the only person in the world that has quit sales because they think it's not for them, that could actually be just leaving their potential aside when they don't need to. And that's what that all kind of came together for me to go, we've got to create a training company for, sounds selfish, but for people like me initially. I mean, it's evolved a lot, and we train people that have been in the industry for 30, 40 years, sales trainers we train now. But initially it was for the people that were going to quit. And it's like, don't quit, because you just need a little bit more time and a bit more guidance, and you can be successful as well.
I love it. So before we hear about Swish and how you started Swish, couple of takeaways from what you've already said. So firstly, I think you're really highlighting for me when you focus and you dig your heels in, as you say, and you really do commit to something, even if it's for, having the defined period of time is also really helpful. You can move the needle, you can make a step change. And I really love what you said about progress. Every day is better than the last. Make those small steps, and then you look back over 5 weeks, 60 days, whatever it is, and go, oh my goodness, like I've now done this. And I see that a lot. People are stretched very thin, and they're just a little bit in everything, and they're not fully focused on a goal or an outcome. And so they never really make growth. So that's the first tip, and I love it. And I think that the second one, if anyone's watching this going, that's me, I'm an introvert who can't sell anything, watch this space. Ryan's about to tell us how anyone can sell. Let's just bust the myth that you need to be extroverted and you need to be a certain kind of person to make sales. And I think that's the whole, ethos of how Swish came to be. So please tell us what happened next.
Yeah, just on that note as well, Jasmine, because that's a really important message. There's a beautiful irony when somebody's telling you they can't sell. So they're selling you on why they can't sell.
Yes.
And it's
convincing you.
they're trying to convince you they can't, and I've got to convince them that they can. So whoever wins that argument is the better salesperson. And if they win, then you're actually a really good salesperson. So quite an interesting phenomenon.
I like it.
So where were we with the start of Swish?
Yes. So sorry, back to your role. So you were top of the leaderboard. You were making, did you say over 300K in commission? That's remarkable.
So this was nearly 18 months later. So I got promoted to sales manager. Jack, the co-founder of this company, who was my sales manager at the time, he retired in his early 20s. Initially, he's back working now, but he did retire. He'd done very well. Different story. And I was then sales manager. I had a team of 47. And what I realized was I really loved, again, taking people into the company. We were recruiting a lot. We always had new salespeople coming in, and there were lots of people coming in and wanting to quit within the first couple of weeks, first month, and just helping them and guiding them and saying, hey, it's okay. Just sharing my story, not knowing that this was going to become a whole story for the whole business, and then seeing people succeed. I loved that. I actually started to, hopefully this comes across the right way, I actually enjoyed watching other people make sales and money more than I did just ringing the bell and making sales myself. So I got a real buzz for coaching, which I never thought I would, or I never saw coming. But then it takes a bit of a sinister turn. And I never used to share this, but I've started sharing it a lot over the last couple of years, because it's our truth, right? And we always talk about telling the truth better. So as I worked my way up within the organization, I started to sit on more management meetings. I started to see behind the scenes and the way that the company was looking after our clients. And we're selling people to come into a program for $15,000 to $25,000. So it's a significant investment for some people. Jack had left, new owners had come in, and it was all about sell, 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 make money, get people over the line, for want of a better phrase, but it'll be the easiest way for people to understand it. Very Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street type organization. And I'm like, I just didn't feel comfortable with it. I was top of the sales board, but I wasn't doing it that way. I was doing it in what we now know to be the SWISH methodology. It didn't have a name back then. And it was very consultative, very relationship driven, and it was working. And I'm like, why are you trying to change me when I'm top of the board? It makes no sense. And then on top of that, we were never supposed to answer inbound phone calls because we had a customer service team to do that. And it was like, yeah, Ryan, you and the sales guys just focus on outbound. But one Saturday morning, I went in and I was in there by myself, and the phone rang. And I'm like, I'll answer it. It might be an inbound inquiry. So I answered it, and it turned out to be an elderly lady that I'd brought on board a couple of months before. And she'd paid a significant amount of money to join. And she was like, oh, Ryan, my God, thank God you answered the phone. Like, no one's spoken to me at all since I paid. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? She's like, yeah, nobody, I haven't had any contact whatsoever. And I looked at like the communications board, and allegedly they had, and I thought, oh, maybe she's forgot. Maybe they've tried and they couldn't reach her. But I had this feeling in my stomach that was like, it just didn't feel right. So I said, I'll leave it with me. I'll go and do some research. I'll get somebody in touch with you on Monday. But I had this like desire to call some of my other clients, and I did it. So I went back through my sales over the last couple of months, same story every single time. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, is this a scam? Like, are we just like literally rorting people? And it wasn't, but they definitely weren't getting the support and the customer experience that I purported on the front end, which I thought they were getting, because we had a support team.
Yeah, right. So
But
there
it
was
was
a
just
misalignment between what you were selling and what they were receiving.
100%.
Oh.
And it was more so that they were just selling so much that they just wanted to get people in, that they couldn't service it. And it wasn't the frameworks to a stable business weren't built out. And I remember like getting quite emotional, like after I'd made 3 or 4 phone calls, and I went back to Alicia and I was like, I'm done. Like, I just can't. And that week, so the Friday before, or the day before, I'd netted like $13,000 in a week. Like, I was making crazy money. And I walked in on the Monday and I just quit. I said, nah, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And it was then a conversation between Jack and I was created. It was twofold. It was, we want to help people get into sales jobs and make sure they stick. So it was almost like a sales recruitment model that we created. But on top of that, the main message from the whole company would be about changing the perception of sales and showing people that it can be done a different way. You don't need to lie, bully, manipulate, overpromise, oversell just to be successful. You can be authentically you and create a good business at the same time. And that's where SWISH, as it's now known, it's evolved, but SWISH was born in October 2014. So it's about February it's February it was born, but then launched in October.
So did you bring Jack out of retirement and into SWISH?
Technically, yeah. So he was playing his story, he talks about playing a lot of golf, putting on a bit of weight, and retirement maybe not serving him as well as he thought it would, doing a few things that he shouldn't have been doing, which a young early 20s with lots of money in their bank might do. So I think it was good for both of us. Like, he'd worked in businesses at a higher level than I had at the time. I definitely am not a natural entrepreneur or a natural business person. I didn't know where to start. So we were a good little combination. I'm very process driven, great with systems. He's more of an entrepreneur. Let's just get shit done. So that worked very, very well for us.
And is that what, like, I guess, attracted you to reach out and try and partner with Jack, because you did have those differences and together you were, a strong unit?
Yeah, well, we played football together anyway, so there was always lots of conversations going on about what are you going to do next, and he was asking me what I'm going to do, and then his idea, like I said, Jack comes from quite what do you call it, a low socioeconomic background. He lived on a housing commission back in the UK, so he was very passionate about helping the youth. And what we realized at the time on the Gold Coast, there was high level employment, especially around youth, but there was lots of sales jobs. There was high turnover in sales jobs. So what we decided to create was a sales boot camp, so like a 2-day sales training course for job seekers. And the way we ran it, it was kind of like The Voice or X Factor in a way that we did. You come in, you do 2 days worth of training with us, and then on the third day, so we could only put like 13, 14 students in a classroom at a time. On the third day, we invited up to 10 business owners locally that were looking for sales staff. So they came in, we created a long desk all the way down the center of the room, and they sat as a panel. And then each salesperson that's just finished the course had 9 minutes to present themselves to all of those business owners. So we teach them how to sell themselves in that environment. So it was like they got judges. It was quite intimidating, actually. Now I think about it. But at the time, it was awesome. We used to give all the business owners, we bring in sushi and Subway and wine and beer and put on an event.
I love this.
So it was pretty innovative. And then the business owners would then go, all right, I like Paul, Sarah, and Michelle. Okay. And then at the end, they would then fill out their forms. They'd pass it to us. And then we would go back to all the students, and we would have prior to that, we've already presented all the jobs that were going to be available. And if Paul and Sarah said, yep, I also like that job, we match them up. They start work on the Monday. And what that enabled us to do was really take our sales methodology and show to businesses, firstly locally, that, hey, you've got Jasmine that's got no sales experience, and we're going to turn her into your number one performer in the first 10 weeks. So we gave you that, and then we gave you 10 weeks worth of online training and support as well, which is now known as the SWISH Academy. And it worked amazing. We had a 96% success rate, placement rate. We did 2,500 clients in just over 2 years, 2,500 placements in 2 years, saved the government $17 million in Centrelink payments. And then businesses would just come back and go, Jasmine's actually pretty good. Hey, can you now train the rest of my team? And that's how we made money through corporate training.
That's brilliant. How did you guys land on that model? Like, as you say, it's quite innovative. Did you just see that there was a gap in the market and just went for it?
Nah, it was by accident, really. I wish it was that cool.
The best business ideas are by accident.
Yeah, no, it was more so that we had one. So our first ever company we recruited for was a company called Sharples Enterprises here on the Gold Coast. One of the directors, Jamie Thomas, is a Welsh guy. We played football with him. He was always frustrated at sales staff coming and going. So we said to him, obviously we're going to start a sales coaching company, and we're going to train people. And if we get anybody that's looking for a job on there, do you want us to send them over to you? He goes, yeah, that'd be awesome. So you guys are going to train them? We were like, yeah. So he says, I'll take them. He goes, how much? We were like, nah, free of charge. Don't worry about it. We'll do it free of charge. But if they're any good, can we come in and train the rest of your team? And he was like, yeah, if you can do it. So, and then I feel like there's a bit of a gap here in what I remember, but it must have been a conversation about, well, can I come in and just speak to some of the people on the course? So we said, yeah, well, Jamie, why don't you come in on the third day, meet some of them? And then that just escalated. So then it was like, right, there's one business owner, there's another. We could only get 9 or 10 across in the room. And eventually it just became a panel of business owners. So we had jobs galore. We had job seekers galore. And in its prime, we were placing anywhere from 14, 15 a week. But when we went digital, we were doing like 30, 40 a week into work. And then if you didn't succeed or it didn't work out, it wasn't a good fit, you could always come out of that one, and we've got like 50 other jobs. So we were always like a good resource for people to find work. Then once we went on Shark Tank, we realized that was the most time consuming and least monetized side to the whole business. And it just wasn't scalable. So post Shark Tank, that's where we reined that in. And then we decided after much deliberation that we were just going to be known as a sales training organization and just focus on going into companies and training their staff digitally and physically.
I love it. So yes, if any viewers, Ryan did say Shark Tank, the actual TV show Shark Tank. So talk us through that journey, and was that a real pivot point for you guys?
Yeah, it definitely was. So the journey was quite interesting. So at that stage, by the way, so late 2017, early 2018, I'm still in my introverted state, hating public speaking, didn't deliver much in the classroom-based environment. Like Jack would be doing pretty much everything. So I wouldn't, if there was like a group of 3 or more, I'm out. So Jack didn't ask me about Shark Tank. He referenced it once, and I was like, we're going okay. Why do we need to do that? Like, we in my eyes, we're going to go onto TV and we could ruin everything. Well, we're supposed to be these hotshot salespeople. What if we don't get an investor? Like, we
What
lose
if we
everything.
can't pitch?
What if we can't sell? Right? It doesn't make sense. So and then he came to me in late 2017, and he said, "So seriously, how would you feel if we went onto Shark Tank?" And I was like, you do it. Like, if you really want to do it, you do it. That's your arena. And he went, good, because we've been accepted. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he'd already applied, didn't tell me. And then, so that was late 17. And then in March 2018 was when we were due to go on. We had to fly down to Sydney to film. So leading up to it, we were talking to producers. They give you somebody to kind of train you. You have to do police checks, psychiatric testing to make sure you can handle that environment. And all the way through, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going on. Jack's going to do it. Jack's going to do it. So we just kind of pushed Jack, and he didn't need pushing. Like, he loves that. And he's his environment. He's phenomenal. But then I had one conversation with one of the producers, really getting closer towards it. And he said to me, Ryan, there is a lot of benefit with having two people on, because we've had it in the past where sometimes the investors like one of them, but they don't like the other. So you actually double your chances of getting an investment if you have two people on, because they might like one of you and they can just give you an in. And I'm like, and it was my wedding anniversary, the day we were supposed to be filming. We were supposed to be in Bali. So I kind of sat on it too long. And then I did. Eventually I came back. I was like, okay, all right, I'll do it. I'll just grow a pair and just go on. And by the time I said that, I'd left it too late. So I didn't get time to do my police checks or my psychiatric testing. So they said, Ryan, you can just wait out the back. So you can fly down, you can still come, but you just have to wait out the back. We can't put you on TV because we haven't done all of the checks. I'm like, awesome. That's perfect. So I can still be there, but I don't have to go out into the tank. This is the best case scenario for me. And then I don't normally go this deep into this story, by the way. So
I'm so intrigued by it. I love this.
And I will say, so me and Alicia went, me, Alicia and Jack flew down to Sydney. And I remember it was a really rainy day. And then we got there at like 5 or 6 in the morning. They're doing makeup, putting microphones on us both. So I still need a microphone on. And then me and Alicia went and sat in this gazebo on a plastic chair outside in the rain, just left. And I'm like, is this it? And then they pulled Jack. They was like, all right, they're next, Jack Corbett. And then he went and he did his thing. I forget the time, maybe 11 o'clock by the time he went down. And they said, Ryan, we'll only come and get you if there is a negotiation to be made. So if Jack wants to come out the back and say, hey, we've got 1 or 2 offers, do you want to talk about it? And he said, at that stage, we'll come and get you. I'm like, okay, cool. So fingers crossed, we get 1 offer, Jack accepts it, I don't have to go out. And then maybe about 45 minutes later, one of the runners, they're actually called runners, and I know why they're called runners, comes out and said, Ryan, so we need to take you down. And I'm like, oh, has he got some offers? And they're like, oh, we can't tell you. So you just need to go. You need to go now. And I'm like, what? Okay, cool. So, so then I'm starting to run in the rain, and they're putting makeup on me as I'm running. And I'm like, why? I said, why am I getting makeup on? I'm not going on screen. And they go, and then I got to like the back entrance door of this studio, and they said, yep. So the Sharks have basically said, because you're a 50% shareholder, they want to meet the other business partner. So once the Sharks say, it overrides everything. So they're like, so yeah, you're going to go in. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, no. I've not done my police checks. Like you, and they didn't care. Like, but it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because otherwise I would have had too much time to think about it. So then they said, right, so Jack's going to come out now. You're going to walk around the corner. Jack's going to explain to you what's happened. And then you're both going to go into the tank. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then Jack came out. I walked around the corner. They started filming over my shoulder, and then big cameras everywhere. And then Jack explained that we got 4 offers.
4 from 4?
What the offers were. We got 4 out of 5. So yeah, the only one that didn't make an offer was Naomi. She didn't. So then it was like, okay, what do we want? And then me and Jack went back and forth discussing for a while. I was very aware that nobody had ever got 3 sharks in Australian Shark Tank history. So our conversation basically centered around, do we go for Steve, who was the one we wanted originally? Or do we try and become the first company in the history to get 3? which might take a little bit more negotiating. We decided for the latter, tried to get 3. And then we went back in, and then we would have been in there for at least another hour and a half, back and forth. And it was absolutely terrifying, but also exhilarating. It was a bit of a blur, really. It felt like it went for about 5 minutes. And yeah, we ended up walking out with Steve, Andrew, and Glenn, investing in the company.
Wow. I just need to absorb that. So tip again, if you're watching the episode, go out of your comfort zone. And maybe have someone pulling you out of your comfort zone. Have a Jack who pushes you in the deep end, and always, I guess, expect the unexpected. So always be prepared. Always have maybe your pitch ready, so that if you're ever thrust in front of an opportunity, you're ready, which is awesome. But I really want to ask you, how do you go from a team of 2 who are just kind of taking off to now having 3? I'm going to say big guns. Now investors in your business. What was that like for you guys?
Just surreal, really. I mean, initially I was quite intimidated by them, and like I felt like we had to try and impress them all the time. But the reality is they're just real people, and they've been like they increased their stake in the business last year as well. So like they're well and truly committed. They do so much for us. Undoubtedly, having 5 decision makers or 5 opinions is harder than 2. But there is a nod towards maybe just getting 1 investor would have been more sensible, rather than just getting through, because they all have different opinions, but they all have different value to bring as well. So, but it's been amazing. I was very naive to it. I thought as soon as the cameras stop, you just walk out the back, they give you the money, and then it's like, oh, sweet. But I'd never raised capital before, neither had Jack, and it's like we didn't realize that there was going to be 6 months worth of due diligence afterwards, which there was. And our due diligence period was longer than most because we had 3 of them. So I don't know if this is publicized. No, I think it is. So I'll say it anyway. But 92% of Shark Tank deals fall over after the show. So
wow.
Most of them, less than 10% actually go through afterwards. So they make an offer on the show. They do their due diligence. People have lied or fabricated the numbers. They can't back it up. Their product maybe doesn't work or isn't what's suggested. So it was improbable that we would keep all 3 after due diligence. We were told that. So to keep all 3 once they went through, used our training, spoke to clients, we're pretty proud of that.
So first Australian Shark Tank, what do you call it? Applicant, I suppose, to get 3, and then you kept all 3. And what did that do for Swish? What happened to your company with them coming on board?
Just credibility, I think, just gave us. I remember Andrew said one thing. He said, "This isn't sales training. This is communication coaching." And every single business and human being in the world can learn from communicating their message better. And that's all it is. If we break it down to its most simplistic form, it's what do you do? Who do you help? How do you explain it? All right, let us help you explain that better so that you can make more sales, grow, and have more impact. So to be aligned with 3 guys that have got really good reputation. Steve's a bit controversial, but we love him for it. And it's almost like, oh, you're on Shark Tank. Okay, well, if they saw value in you and those guys have had the most successful businesses globally, then they've done their due diligence. It's almost like if they've done it, they're not stupid, right? So it just gave us a real kind of boost of credibility to the market and for us as well. Like I don't know about, I can't speak for Jack, but for me, there was definitely a level of imposter syndrome at a certain stage of, am I worthy to be in a boardroom with these guys? And is our business actually that good? Like I know I enjoy the training. I can see it working, but is it that good? Is it global? And when they go, well, I'm going to analyze this for the next few months and I'll let you know. And then all 3 of them go, yeah, here's my money. And they transfer the money. It's like, maybe it is. Maybe it is. And that's what it did for me personally. It made me believe in our own product even more than I had done before. The caveat to all of that was it also removed any excuses. There was a very conscious moment down in Sydney. We were having a beer afterwards on the day. And I remember saying to Jack, how do we fail now? How do you fail with those minds on your board? Like we've got, if you're going through anything, COVID, Like, we've got people to go to now that have been through it and worse. So when you remove people's excuses, it's really quite scary. And I think that's what we do from a sales training perspective. People say, I can't afford it, I'm not a salesperson, or my business isn't here just yet. What we're doing is removing all your excuses, and then you will succeed, or you have to succeed, which is a scary place to be.
I love it. It's an exciting place to be. It's amazing. So again, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, do I get investment? Do I not? There's all different kinds of support that you can get. But I think the lesson I'm learning here from you, Ryan, is that, bringing in other people can be so transformational for your business. You don't have to go on Shark Tank. There are other ways to get investors, or even, mentors or people that can help make your business grow. It's transformational. It's amazing. Take the plunge.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's different ways of raising capital, as you said, and whether you release equity or not is up to you. We just decided to do it in the public eye, which worked for us. But we arguably could have got more money externally, maybe doing it in a private raise. But it just accelerates things. You're either going to go under quicker, or you're going to get where you were always going to go quicker. And thankfully for us, it accelerated us forward. We've changed a lot. We've changed an awful lot since they came on board with their guidance. We grew 300% in the 12 months afterwards.
Wow.
So there's no mistake there that whatever they say, even if it's really subtle, and a lot of it is just questioning and challenging our thinking. It's not telling us what to do. It's obviously worked. And that might just be, again, our own mindset shift to be thinking bigger.
It's brilliant. I love it. And it's something that everyone who has a business can do to go to the next level. So great advice. Now let's just quickly, we are in the dying minutes of our Vodcast episode, but let's have a quick, I guess, plug of Swish. So there's lots of business owners here going, yeah, I want to grow. I want to find my target market. I want to sell more. What can Swish deliver people like that?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? Clarity and consistency. If I was going to make it a nice, easy answer for you, one of the major challenges we see within business is that they lack a consistent message across the board from every single person in the organization. One strange evolution of our business is that 30% of our clients now are not in sales. They're in customer support, they're in HR, they're on reception, they're in retentions. They're all part of sales. Like, everybody in the company is part of sales. So if you want everybody in your business to represent your brand better, and create a better customer experience from start to finish and post, so you get repeat and referral loyal clients, then we can help with that. And then consistency with it as well. So we believe that training isn't something that you did, it's something that you do. So it was a bit of a hit to the ego when we first created online training, because I like physical training. I like standing in front of groups of people and coaching in live workshops, but it doesn't get the best long-term results. It gives a big hype up for 24, 48 hours. But then human nature suggests that a lot of that information will filter out over the course of the next 30 to 60 days. So the repetition to breed familiarity, which then breeds competence, which then breeds confidence, is really important. So the consistency that we offer through our online training academy is what's really transforming businesses. 15, 20 minutes every couple of days. We do live training twice a week. We're there to answer any questions. Has really seen some phenomenal results over the last few years.
I love it. And there's also the opportunity to do some role playing. So you can actually put what you learn on the academy into practice in a safe space, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. That's a good way. Yeah, it is a safe space. There's no judgment. There's no judgment, because not everybody, that's tarnishing everybody, but there's a general consensus that we don't enjoy role play. But role play is by far and away the one thing we need to do to make sure we solidify the knowledge that we're consuming. And role play can be as simple as a one-liner lasting 10 seconds. So twice a week we do that in a Zoom room. And that can be anybody all around the world that's a member that joins that. If you don't want to do it yourself, you can just kind of observe other people doing it until you feel confident enough as well. But it gives you an opportunity to get $1,000 an hour worth of coaching without paying $1,000 an hour, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, one-to-one wasn't scalable for us, so we do have elite programs, but the academy has really allowed us to reach a lot more people globally.
That's brilliant. And now, just to, I guess, end our episode, if we come full circle to what we talked about at the very start, which is, busting the myth that introverts can't sell, for example, or different kinds of people can't sell. You've got to be a very specific type of person. Not true. I know that there is an offering that Swish have, a relatively new one, I think, where it's personality profiling. Do you want to just quickly tell us about that?
Oh yeah, great example. So yeah, we just partnered with a company called TTI Success Insights down in Sydney. So they're the biggest personality profiling organization in Australasia. They've done 30 million profiles over the last 30, 40 years. So there's lots of data there to be compared against. So anybody that joins our academy for 12 months gets a totally complimentary personality profile, assessing your own behaviors, your own drivers and motivators, which allows you to understand the way that you communicate, the way that you buy, and indeed the way that you sell. Because quite often we sell the way we like to buy, which is a big mistake. We need to learn the way that consumers buy. That's valued at $500, and like I say, you get it totally free of charge. So it's quite an interesting thing to do. I put my wife through the assessment as well, and just reading each other's back and forth. That, away from work, away from business, that is probably the most common feedback we get, is that, Ryan, I had no idea that your training would impact me on a personal level. We've had, it might sound a bit cheesy, we've had people say, you saved my marriage because you've helped me communicate better with my partner. And I just wasn't listening at the right time, or I wasn't replying in the right tone, or I wasn't communicating what I wanted to do and my goals and my vision properly. So that, not skills-based, the personality profiling assessment is really helping with that as well.
I love it.
We want our training to be science-backed moving forward. Instead of it just being, here's some conceptual training, fingers crossed it's going to work for you. It allows us to truly tailor every single experience.
I love it. So you can grow your skills your way based on your personality. It's fantastic.
100%. And where you are within your experience levels as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I mean, if we just reflect on this episode, we've talked about your personal transformation, the transformation that Swish has had, getting investors, growing, stumbling upon a business model by accident. And then, of course, what you actually offer is transformative to people. So I think you're ticking all the boxes in terms of transforming your business, doing things strategic, out of the box. So thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me on. That was fun. I went into a little bit more detail than other areas before, so hopefully people will enjoy it as well.
I'm sure they will. Now, where can we find out more about Swish?
We're pretty much everywhere. So if you're on socials, you can get Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn would be the big three, I guess. And the same for me personally. LinkedIn is the one that I work the most. Instagram, you can get me on there as well, but as I always say, babies and dogs is what you're probably going to get dominated by. But yeah, SWISHSalesCoaching.com. Yeah.
.com?
Excellent. Pretty easy to find.
Beautiful.
.com, just .com, no AU.
Good to know. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, I should say, to today's Vodcast episode with Ryan Tuckwood from SWISH Sales Coaching. You can catch a replay of this episode on the LVL UP website, as well as YouTube, all over LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram as well. We'll see you for next episode. And thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much.